the story of the search for mind control. ABC News Close-Up, Mission Mind Control.
A difficult thing for some people to understand is what's happening today is not just an elite making a final move to take over anything. You're up against something, a system that's very, very, very old. It's the only truly organized system on the whole planet. You will only find this kind of fanatical intergenerational devotion to an agenda when there's some kind of religion involved in it. That's a hard concept for people to grasp. They've been trained to believe things are happening at the moment by happenstance, by crisis coming out of nowhere. And here's what we must do. We must solve this problem at the time. Nothing is further from the truth. Every generation for hundreds of years has been brought up with the same elites, predecessors, designing and running the show for each generation. And when people wake up, they generally go through the same stages as someone who becomes bereaved when you find that democracy never existed in the first place.
This is not a new world. It is simply an extension of what began in the old one. It has patterned itself after every dictator who has ever planted the ripping imprint of a boot on the pages of history since the beginning of time. It has refinements, technological advances, and a more sophisticated approach to the destruction of human freedom. But like every one of the superstates that preceded it, it has one iron rule. Logic is an enemy and truth is a menace.
Logic is an enemy and truth is a menace.
What you're about to watch is a nightmare. It is not meant to be prophetic. It need not happen. It's the fervent and urgent prayer of all men of goodwill that it never shall happen. But in this place, in this moment, it does happen.
Allowing only worthy people to reproduce to create a generation of genetically superior children? That's called eugenics.
Oh, so that's frowned upon, eh?
It is. Some have claimed that the Georgia Guidestones are instructions for a new world order, an open call for eugenics, genocide, and a one-world government. But we're told this is all conspiracy theory, that there's no evidence to support these claims.
But there's evidence?
Oh yeah, plenty of it. At first glance, the 10 rules on the Georgia Guidestone sounded like a cheesy New Age bumper sticker, but if you read them carefully, they're disturbing. Let's start with the first one. Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. The current population is just under 8 billion people. To achieve the Guidestone's ideal population means that roughly 94% of people on Earth would need to be eradicated. And there are many people and think tanks that support this. R.C. Christian wrote a book entitled Common Sense Renewed, which he sent to each member of Congress in 1986.
It is vitally important that each national government have a considered population policy. The need is urgent and should take precedence over other problems, even those of national defense. We have a grave duty to use all available knowledge in perfecting the forces which guide our procreation. A few generations of single-child families will make possible dramatic improvements. Irresponsible childbearing must be discouraged by legal and social pressures.
The Rockefeller that helped create the Club of Rome is the same guy who founded the Population Council in 1954. The Population Council supported, and still supports, research in birth control and early birth termination, specifically in those people with undesirable genetics. How do we know? Rockefeller said so.
Modern civilization had reduced the operation of natural selection by saving more weak lives and enabling them to reproduce, resulting in a downward trend in genetic quality. An organization needed to be created that would be devoted to the reduction of fertility of weaker individuals with undesirable genetics.
The council is still active today. It operates its programs in Africa, Asia, Latin America, and the Middle East. Notice that North America and Europe are not on that list. And the biggest contributor? The United States government.
Improved public health has caused the world's infant mortality rate to decline by 60% over the last 40 years. In the same period, the world's average life expectancy has increased from 46 years in 1950s to 63 years today. The negative impact of population growth on all of our planetary ecosystems is becoming appallingly evident.
I have told you that the spirits of darkness are going to inspire their human hosts, in whom they will be dwelling, to find a vaccine that will drive all inclination towards spirituality out of people's souls when they are still very young. And this will happen in a roundabout way through the living body. Today, bodies are vaccinated against one thing and another. In future, children will be vaccinated with a substance which it will certainly be possible to produce, and this will make them immune so that they do not develop foolish inclinations connected with spiritual life. Foolish here, of course, in the eyes of materialists.
Pain demands to be felt. It makes no exceptions, no special treatment. If it wants you, it will take you into the depths of hell and back.
So you're looking to join the Capitol? Splendid choice. But let's answer a question first. Would you call yourself a dreamer? Unsure if you should continue to pursue your grand ambitions and desires? Well, at the Capitol we have a solution just for you. Let us tell you a tale from one of our loyal citizens. Meet 091771. He was once a hopeful artist formerly known as Roger. It was a lovely autumn day. As Roger and his pup sat in thought, they noticed something peering in the corner. An adorable little gopher. This gave Roger a grand idea. An idea that would change his life forever. Over a handful of years, Roger had finally finished his best comic yet. The Adventures of Gulliver Gopher. Unlike Roger's previous failures, this story was oh so special. His dreams of becoming an author were just around the corner. So he dipped into his entire retirement fund to mass produce his masterpiece. He knew it was a hit. Unfortunately, nobody else thought so. But Roger was no quitter. He hammered back a cup of joe and zoomed straight back to the drawing board, refining the story day by day and night by night, knowing with just a few tweaks it'd be a bestseller. This poor geezer knew this was his final shot at leaving a lasting legacy for the world. It had to work. But not all dreams come true. Over the years of pursuing his unrealistic goals, 091771 had racked a mountain of debt. In an attempt to stay afloat, he sold all his precious belongings. He even had to pawn his father's silver watch, his mother's pearl necklace, and he said goodbye to his precious pup. Unfortunately, this was still not enough. But no worries. We showed him the hard truth about how sometimes imagination can get in the way of reality. We also bought the rights to his mediocre book, liberating him from some of his financial dues. Now, 091771 lives a life free of struggle and full of pleasure, no longer burdened by his unattainable pursuit of success. Why do you try to waken me? We only asked for his undivided attention. Now, he can simply exist without the hard work and disappointment. All he needs are his eyes and his thumbs. Step right up to Melody Manor, where you'll learn how to dance like the rest.
Why did the tomato turn red? Because all the others were doing it.
Mood on the go. Come on, man. Come visit Brightside Bistro.
Bug bite, the crunch you crave. The all-new automatons are more realistic than...
Sweetheart, it's all right. Your dreams won't matter if you just smile.
Would you call yourself a dreamer?
By the Capitol. Grab your copy today. It's the Capitol's biggest hit yet.
This is not my world. 5 years I've been here now. Left in this dark place. The people here almost destroyed everything with war and hate. Then the shifters showed up. They worked in secret, using their deviators to exile politicians, pastors, soldiers, anyone deemed problematic. Billions of people gone. Peace restored. Then he arrived. The leaders who were left gave him control, and he made the world over in his image. No hope. No faith. Here, he rules.
I am the epiphany of the American spirit. I am what this country used to be all about, which means you want to fuck with me, you best bring all your shit. Because I don't care about no Berlin Walls, no 38th parallel, no drawing lines in a goddamn sand. You piss me off, I'm going to come over there and put my boot up your ass. Oh yeah, that's me.
This is a form of sexual violence.
Well, tell that to the whales.
Mm-hmm. I know you love that shit, man.
Not me, man. I don't take government jobs.
Hollywood movie, but a group of veterans has filed a lawsuit against the CIA and U.S. Army claiming that the government planted remote-control devices in their brains. The claims relate to a government program at the U.S. Army's Edgewood Arsenal in Maryland, where scientists tested hundreds of chemical and biological substances on at least 7,800 servicemen. So could this really be happening? Well, joining me to help discuss this is Dr. Colin Ross, president of the Colin A. Ross Institute for Psychological Trauma. Dr. Ross, tell me, is this really happening? Did the government really take part in mind control experiments on soldiers? What kind of stories have you heard from the survivors of these experiments? I know you've had access to thousands of documents from the CIA.
Well, it's just like you just said, there's two kind of streams of information. There's stories from survivors, and then there's the documents. So if I go to the documents first, they're very, very detailed, 15,000 pages plus. And we're starting back in 1950 with projects called Artichoke and Bluebird, which were then rolled over into MK Ultra, which in turn was rolled over to MK Search, and then all the documents stop in 1973. So in that era, 50 to 73, there's a whole host of different types of mind control experiments: hypnosis, LSD, special interrogation chambers, and brain electrode implants. And so there's projects in the CIA documents and in Army records where electrodes are put into dolphins, and the dolphins are directed by remote transmitter to deliver a bomb to a target. And there's a discussion of similar technology in cats and other animals. There's research funded by the Office of Naval Research published in mainstream journals where electrodes are put in the brains of cats, dogs, and their behaviors controlled, and even human beings at Harvard and Yale. So this is absolutely documented fact.
So tell me how commonplace this was. Are we talking about one program that took place decades ago, or do you think it's happening more often than that? And if so, how could it be so secretive? I mean, most people would think this can't be true. This is stuff out of a movie.
Right. It was not just one program back in the 50s, 60s, 70s. It was Harvard, Yale, Tulane, UCLA. So we know there was more than one university involved, more than one branch of the military, more than one program.
So we're putting cancer viruses in your vaccines. Yeah, fluoride does give you a 7-fold increase in bone cancer and brain disorders increase. You know what? Yeah, your diabetes doubled the last decade, and so did your cancer, but we got white papers talking about how we're doing it to you, so what? You know, there's a football game on. Here you go, doggy, football game. Don't worry, we're killing you.
My responsibility was project leader or the senior project engineer. We began to work on the design of a microchip that, when it was completed, was 0.75 millimeters in diameter, 7 millimeters long. It was the size of 1/4 of a grain of rice. Again, I want to say that I was not a Christian and there were no Christians there. They said they wanted this to have a power source and be able to emit a signal. And they told us they wanted us to use lithium as a battery source. Lithium's used in watch batteries, it's used in heart pacemaker batteries, it's used in a lot of places. I designed into this microchip a little charging circuit that would charge that battery. This sounds like a lot of technical things coming together, but if you'll bear with me 1 minute, you'll see what God has laid out about this microchip. When we discovered that we needed to be able to charge that battery, I needed a temperature change, a change in temperature, to cause current to flow through that little charging circuit that would charge the battery. So we began to investigate and find out where in the body does the temperature change the most rapidly. We spent over $1 million in taxpayer money, and when the results came back, there was a lot of information. We divided it up amongst 3 teams and then came back together with that information. It was determined that there were 2 places in the body that were ideal for the microchip. One was just below the hairline on the forehead. Every mother checks their child's temperature right here. So we could have paid the mothers $1 million and saved... I never saw a mother check their child's temperature on their ankle. Always right here. The other place was the hand, the right hand preferred, because most people are right-handed. This didn't bother me, and it didn't bother anybody else on the team. The hand seemed a good place. Nobody wanted it here. And so the design work, everything was completed. The microchip was done. You're seeing it now on some of the Discovery Channel presentations. There are people who have received it already. It is real. It's not something that's coming way down the road. They gave me a Bible. They told me not to read the book of Revelation. They said the book of Revelation is too hard to understand. So I waited, and I didn't read the book of Revelation for quite some time. Then one day I came to Revelation 13, verse 16. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead. I didn't like what I saw. I went back and looked up the word mark. I went to the Strong's Concordance, and I found that John had used 3 words for the word mark. Charagma, Charicature, and Charax. That was from the Greek. I looked at those words. They talked about a scratch or an etching. They talked about a lot of things. And I said, God, this isn't it. We didn't do it. He said, go to the word for 666. The word is chixastigma. In the Greek, it says to go to 4742 as a cross. The last half of the word chixastigma. And when I looked at what it says stizo, i.e. to stick, to prick, a mark incised or punched into for recognition of ownership. I thought about the little injection tool. The end of it is called an incisor. I began to weep and I began to cry, and I said, oh God, what have we done? I couldn't believe that this lined up with what we had developed. And I began to run from God. I didn't run away from the church, I ran into the church. I tried to do as many things as I could to atone for this. But I want to tell you something, as God is my witness here tonight, this got in the way. Money got in the way. I had beautiful homes overlooking the lake. I had all the things that I wanted. And I ran because of the money. My ability to go and get $250,000 in research money took me away from telling the message. I ran for many years. What I want to tell you is that this is real. The microchip implant is real. Credit cards are failing. They can be counterfeited. The new smart card can be counterfeited. They can be stolen. They can be lost. All kinds of things can happen to a card. But you cannot lose your hand. Very quickly they're going to move to this being in the hand. And I tell you, as a Christian, you cannot take this. No matter what anybody says, God's word says you cannot take it. No matter what they try to talk you into, God's word says don't take it. In Revelation 14, verse 9, and the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast in his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. And the smoke of their torment ascendeth up forever and ever, and they have no rest day nor night, who worship the beast in his image, and whosoever receiveth the mark of his name. Here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. It's very simple. God's word says do not take it. Today there have been over 15,000 babies that have been given the positive identification, the microchip. Many companies are using the microchip as identification in their top-level employees. The Immigration Naturalization Service has a better passport, the human hand. So many of these things are all around us. We talk about the signs of the New World Order. God has spelled out in His Word just exactly what's going on today in the New World Order. Satan desires to have a one-world government. From the time he fell, he said, I want a one-world government. He wants to replace God. And so we see a government put together by men, a one-world government. The signs of the times are all around us.
Mount Royal in Montreal. It houses the Allen Memorial Institute of Psychiatry of McGill University. It was here that the CIA funded a series of experiments, severe experiments. The work was done by the Institute's then director, Dr. Ewan Cameron. It is the closest experimentation to brainwashing yet disclosed. His work, unprecedented in psychiatry, consisted of 3 areas which he called sleep therapy, psychic driving, and the ultimate depatterning. Dr. Maurice Dongier, current head of the Allen Memorial Institute.
In his psychic driving, so-called type of therapy, he would give the patient intensive electric treatment in order to make the patient regress deeply, become forgetful, and then he would attempt to implant new ideas in the mind of the patient.
Now, to a layman, it would appear that Dr. Cameron was trying to take the slate and wipe it clean, the slate being the mind. In other words, brainwashing.
Exactly, that's a very good comparison.
Brainwashing.
Yes, if you like.
Val Orlico of Winnipeg, Canada, the wife of a member of the Canadian Parliament, was a patient of Dr. Cameron's. She entered the Allen Memorial Institute because of severe depression. She describes for the first time publicly the LSD therapy and psychic driving treatment that she was given by Dr. Cameron.
And then the drug began to take hold very rapidly because it was an IV injection, and things became very furry and very frightening, and had a lot of sensations that it's very difficult to recall. Nobody explained it to me. Nobody ever asked me if I was willing to do it or anything.
He had this feeling that he would be able to get through the resistance of illness and to reach deep changes very quickly.
Did he?
I don't think that when you look at that in retrospect, the hopes that he had have been in any way fulfilled.
But Cameron would plunge on. The next step was what he called psychic driving. This involved almost endless tape-recorded messages and more drugs for the patient. Cameron wrote that this was the way to make direct controlled changes in personality.
I thought this was the coldest and most impersonal treatment that anybody could give to anybody in the world. And I became more and more despondent and more angry. I just became so despondent that I thought I can't live like this any longer. And I thought I would just go out and throw myself underneath the cars on McGregor. I stood on the curb of that street and I stood there and I thought, okay, go. Okay, go. And then I thought, what if you're not killed? What if you're just maimed? What if you don't die and you live and you can't even talk anymore? And I couldn't do it.
The most severe technique Cameron used was depatterning. He described it as breaking up the existing patterns of behavior by means of intensive electroshock therapy with prolonged periods of sleep. He carried out these experiments in something he called the sleep rooms.
People in there were like babies. They cried and they were very disoriented. And we were very afraid of the sleep room. We used to walk very carefully against the side of the corridor that was opposite the sleep room with our backs to the wall when we'd go by.
Cameron used this combined sleep electroshock treatment on patients as long as 30 days. One patient he kept asleep for 65 days. Cameron retired, and his successor, Dr. Robert Cleghorn, ordered a follow-up study on the patients treated with Cameron's de-patterning method.
Showed that it was no more beneficial in its result than the use of more conservative methods.
But the follow-up study showed that 60% of those who had been de-patterned still had amnesia for periods of anywhere from 6 months to 10 years. That's quite a memory loss, isn't it?
That is a memory loss. Indeed it is. It's I think, more than desirable.
In retrospect, does Dr. Cameron's experimentation and his treatment appear harsh?
I would say yes. I mean, this forceful type of approach that I was describing to you is definitely, it can be said that it's harsh.
I wouldn't call it harsh. I would say it was harder on the staff than it was on the patients, because these people had to be fed and they had to be cared for and they had to be given sufficient fluid and food and toileted and so on and so forth. It was a very difficult thing for the staff to follow these patients properly and see that they did well.
Well, I'm glad he was concerned for the staff. But damn it all, I wouldn't.
No fucking way, man.
The average person can handle one major crisis in their personal life, maybe two at the same time. It's understood in psychology and many studies that if you have maybe 3 to 4 crises hitting you personally in your life at the same time, you will literally go into an incredible depression, a reactive depression. You can't cope. That's understood. The thing is, there's not one of these crises that we're being told about that you personally can do anything about. What can you do about terrorism if it really exists all over the place? It's out of your hands, you're helpless. What can you do about a coming pandemic? It's out of your hands, you're helpless. What can you do about a nuke getting set off in New York Harbor or wherever? You can't, you're helpless. The message you're getting is that you're utterly helpless to defend, help, or save yourself. That is complete shock and awe tactic. It's been used not only in the US and Canada, but across the world. Same strategy, because we're already global with the global society running us all. Massive psychology and warfare techniques in psychology has been used across the planet to make us succumb to fear when all those around you are getting scared at the same time as you because they're losing their jobs. They've been threatened with pandemics, terrorists everywhere, terrifying people to even get on subways, and so on. And all those around you, as I say, are also in the same boat. You tend to be more easily directed by the powers that be to come out and speak with authority and confidence over you. The leaders are presented to us on screen with uniforms or business suits and ties as politicians who speak with confidence, all scripted of course, and they seem to have everything under control. You're now basically a fearful slave looking up to the powerful master to defend and protect you. That's the simple technique of it.
Let me say, if I may, emphatically, there positively is a group of people on the face of the earth who control the world.
Trying to kill the children
Oh my gosh, it's going to be so good, Klaus. You know,
So good, Klaus. You know,
right? You know, how old are you? You and I need to find a way to get younger because it's going to be a thrilling few decades.
we keep young, we keep young, you see.
You and I need to find a way to get younger because it's going to be a thrilling few decades.
We keep young, we keep young, you see.
Scientists may have found a real fountain of youth.
The fountain of youth, and it is young blood.
That may hold promise, but at a price.
We're receiving young blood from healthy volunteers.
Adrenochrome.
Going to be so good, Klaus.
We keep young, we keep young, we keep young.
It's going to be a
transcendence and living forever and the secrets of the universe, and they want to know all this. Some are good, some are bad, some are a mix. But the good ones don't ever want to organize. The bad ones tend to want to organize because they lust after power. Powerful consciousnesses don't want to dominate other people. They want to empower them, so they don't tend to get together until things are really late in the game. Then they come together. Evil's always defeated because good is so much stronger. And we're on this planet, and Einstein's physics showed it, Max Planck's physics showed it, there's at least 12 dimensions. And now that's why all the top scientists and billionaires are coming out saying it's a false hologram. It is artificial. The computers are scanning it and finding tension points where it's artificially projected and gravity's bleeding in to this universe. That's what they call dark matter. So we're like a thought or a dream that's a wisp in some computer program, some God's mind, whatever. They're proving it all. It's all coming out. Now, there's like this sub-transmission zone below the third dimension that's just turned over to the most horrible things is what it resonates to. And it's trying to get up into the third dimension that's just a basic level consciousness to launch into the next levels. And our species is already way up at the fifth, sixth dimension, consciously, our best people. But there's this big war trying to like basically destroy humanity because humanity has free will and there's a decision to which level we want to go to. We have free will, so evil's allowed to come and contend, not just good. And the elites themselves believe they're racing using human technology to try to take our best minds and build some type of breakaway civilization where they're going to merge with machines, transcend, and break away from the failed species that is man, which is kind of like a false transmission because they're thinking what they are is ugly and bad, projecting it onto themselves instead of believing, no, it's a human test about building us up. And so Google was set up 18, 19 years ago. I knew about this before it was declassified. I'm just saying I have good sources. That they wanted to build a giant artificial system. And Google believes that the first artificial intelligence will be a supercomputer based on the neuron activities of the hive mind of humanity with billions of people wired into it with the Internet of Things. And so all of our thoughts go into it, and we're actually building a computer that has real neurons in real time that's also psychically connected to us, that are organic creatures, so that they will have current prediction powers, future prediction powers, a true crystal ball. But the big secret is, once you have a crystal ball and know the future, you can add stimuli beforehand and make decisions that control the future. And so then it's the end of consciousness and free will for individuals, as we know, and a true 2.0 in a very bad way, hive mind consciousness with an AI jacked into everyone, knowing our hopes and dreams, delivering it to us, not in some PKD wirehead system where we plug in and give up on consciousness because of unlimited pleasure, but because we were already wired in and absorbed before we knew it by giving over our consciousness to this system by our daily decisions that it was able to manipulate and control into a larger system. There's now a human counterstrike taking place to shut this off before it gets fully into place and to block these systems and to try to have an actual debate about where humanity goes and cut off the pedophiles and psychic vampires that are control of this AI system before humanity's destroyed.
Wait a minute,
humanity
the pedophiles
is only
in control of AI? How'd the pedophiles get in control of AI?
The pedophiles at a whatever level, the devil, whatever you want to call it, this interdimensional thing that gives them advanced off-world technology, the fallen one that's not of this world, is giving them advanced knowledge on how to construct construct these systems that have already been used before on other populations.
What? Is that Satan?
But what are you
That's
talking
Satan.
about?
That's Satan.
But explain that. You're saying
Satan
something
becomes
insane.
something that the stupid preacher tells you about, who's totally controlled, or something you read about on in the news or TV.
Right.
But this is an interdimensional force that wants to influence us to build something that absorbs us and kills us, rather than the divine free will we're given to build something much better that empowers the species. So the species is now making a decision about its entire future.
Where are you getting this from?
That's what it is.
The Temple of Set follows the ancient Egyptian Prince of Darkness, Satan, in another guise. It's America's only legal satanic church and enjoys tax-free status. Lilith Sinclair and Temple Director Michael Aquino edit the Satanic Newsletter. It has a circulation of 75. The Temple of Set emerged from the Church of Satan, founded in the mid-60s by Anton LaVey.
Open wide the gates of hell, and come forth, Shem-Ham Farash.
Shem-Ham Farash. Hail Satan!
No religion had ever been based on man's carnal needs or his fleshly pursuits. All religions are based on abstinence rather than indulgence. We believe in greed, we believe in selfishness, we believe in all of the lustful thoughts that motivate man, because this is man's natural feeling.
I decided that I liked Anton LaVey. He was a pleasant man. He believed in what he was doing, and underneath his somewhat Mardi Gras exterior, I sensed that there was an individual who did in fact have a new perspective on the human equation. From our point of view, it really makes no difference whether you pray to a father god, or to a mother goddess, or to an entire gaggle of gods and goddesses. You're still wishing the same thing. You're still wishing to be included. You're still wishing for their acceptance. You're waiting for them to put their arm or arms around you and say, you belong, you are part of us, you can relax, we will take care of you, we approve of you, we endorse you.
Now, if a Christian said to you, you were just really worshipping yourself, what would you say?
In a sense, they would be right. It is a form of self-worship. Yes, we regard ourselves very highly because we feel we are superior beings in a sense that we're not just little robots going around punching our time clocks, getting up, going to sleep, and that's our existence. There's much more to it than that, and we feel that we are gaining the knowledge of that deeper universe.
On this altar is one of a number of daggers, which we may use in our rituals. This one happened to belong to the commanding general of the most elite unit of Germany's infamous SS. This particular dagger is inscribed to our comrade in the Leibstandarte Theodor Wisch, Brigadeführer, a major general in the Waffen-SS. And on its blade, it bears the inscription, Mein Ehre heißt Treu, or my honor shall be known by my faithfulness.
The year was 1972, and the Rothschild mansion outside of Paris looked like it was in flames. Huge flickering orange lights projected a fiery inferno across the main edifice. It was all part of the preparation for a masked ball they were hosting, and the guest list read like a who's who of the Illuminati. Artists, fashion designers, celebrities, and royalty were greeted by men in cat masks who guided them to the main room, where Marie Helen de Rothschild waited, wearing an elaborate deer head mask with ornate horns jutting from the top. Horned masks have historically been part of ancient pagan rituals. The invites were written backwards and required a mirror to read, reflecting Satanist Aleister Crowley's edict to do everything backwards. This type of event actually dates back to ancient times, such as the Greek and Roman Bacchanalia festival, which involved masked orgies as part of the invocation of pagan gods. The old-moneyed European aristocrats have been secretly attending such events for hundreds of years. In fact, Traum Novelle was about a couple who experiences a similar party in upper-class Austria around the turn of the century. Austria is near the Bavarian region of Germany where the original Bavarian Illuminati was founded. Creepy photos taken from the event have surfaced which show their bizarre costumes and questionable decoration. Baby dolls strewn on tables as part of the decor, demonstrating their hatred for humanity. Audrey Hepburn and another attendee wore birdcage masks, signifying MK-Ultra mind control. Perhaps the weirdest picture is of men gathered around a nude female effigy, laid out on what looks to be some type of sacrificial altar. Notice the similarities to Marina Abramovich's cannibalistic cake parties, attended by the Hollywood elite, and scenes from music videos, such as Katy Perry's creepy Bon Appetit. One rumor even suggested the female body was made of sugar and was actually edible. The menu from this strange event also hints at a cannibalistic undertone. Sirloin, for instance, is spelled out sirloin, like it is a person's name. And another menu item refers to an exquisite cadaver. Sirloin, for instance, is spelled out sirloin, like it is a person's name. And another menu item refers to an exquisite cadaver.
In the late 19th century, wealthy monopolists, most prominently John D. Rockefeller and J.P. Morgan, were growing in economic and political power. Americans were increasingly alarmed at Wall Street's domination of both the Democrat and Republican parties. This led, in the 1890s, to the formation of the grassroots Populist Party. The Rockefeller-Morgan axis decided to distract Americans with a new enemy: Spain. The choice was not coincidental. Spain ruled Cuba, which by the 19th century had become the world's richest colony and largest sugar producer. National City Bank coveted Cuba's white gold as a complement to Standard Oil's black gold. Captain Charles Sigsbee, captain of the Maine, said,
"It became known to me afterward that the Maine had not been expected, even by the United States Consul General."
By what oversight was no one in Havana notified of the battleship's arrival? However, no shooting erupted. The Spanish permitted the Maine to dock. For 3 weeks, the Maine sat in Havana Harbor. In the meantime, the yellow press drove anti-Spanish feelings to fever pitch. William Randolph Hearst paid bribes to have the correspondence of the Spanish ambassador spied upon. One letter, critical of McKinley, was stolen and reprinted in Hearst's journal under the headline, "The Worst Insult to the United States in Its History." 2 days later, a horrific explosion tore apart the Maine. 266 men were killed. A U.S. Naval Court of Inquiry attributed the explosion to an external device, but was unable to assign any blame. The Yellow Press had no reservations. The bombing, they claimed, was the work of the Spanish government. Americans were goaded into war with the battle cry, "Remember the Maine." All Spanish documents reveal that Spain wished to avoid war with America at all costs. Her mostly wooden navy could not hope to compete with the modern U.S. Navy, which consisted increasingly of steel ships. A provocative act against America, such as sinking the Maine, was clearly the last thing desired by the Spanish. But who did want to sink the Maine? Detectives often solved crimes by examining who profited from them. To help finance the war, the Rockefellers' National City Bank loaned the U.S. government $200 million. No income tax then existed. To help repay the loan, a telephone use tax was levied on the American people. It remained in effect for over a century.
Well, my administrators were all very supportive of it. They actually helped me have the camera. I did all the editing. I found the music. I mean, that's all me. It's mostly my production. I just had a really great team of women behind me who wanted to help stop the stigma. of abortion.
Okay, and so hold on. So Emily, let me ask a crazy question. That you're gonna first of all, you knew you were gonna take heat when you did this, right? You understand you're gonna be. It's a controversial topic. You're well aware of it. You're an abortion counselor, and doing this you gotta be to know. I'm gonna ask a crazy question.
Okay.
Did you get pregnant in order to do this video?
Right.
A lot of people on Twitter said the same thing.
I'm gonna ask a crazy question.
Okay.
Did you get pregnant in order to do this video?
Right. A lot of people on Twitter said the same thing.
And you realize that I'm gonna have to laugh at that, right? Like,
Absolutely. If it's laughable, I hope it is. I'm relieved to see you laugh. Our panel's got lots of questions for you, so here's Samantha.
Emily, okay, first of all, I'm pro-choice, but your message was lost to me when you wrote in your essay that you were having sex, but you were not using birth control. So was abortion your form of birth control?
And is that the message you want to put out there?
So actually, what I want to clarify is that I did not have a single partner. Like I was not in a relationship. And to be honest, let's talk about the fact that hormonal birth control can be very scary to women. It can be very scary to put hormones in your body.
What's so scary about a condom? What's scary about a condom or any other barrier method? That's okay. That should not be scary. I worry about you getting an STD if somebody doesn't use a condom. Forget the birth control piece.
And my question is, have you ever done anything in your life that was a mistake? Have you ever smoked a cigarette? Have you ever ran a red light? Have you ever done something that you knew there was consequences, and then you said, wow, that was probably not the most intellectual decision I made? You learn from it and you move forward. Okay. During the procedure, I got an IUD inserted.
Oh, excellent. Oh, excellent. Okay, so Leanne, go ahead.
I just don't understand why people are trying to bash me on this. I've admitted that, hey, we all make mistakes. This is the point.
Of course.
Let's talk about empathy.
Well, I
learned from my mistake and
Leanne.
I moved forward.
One sec, Emily.
I appreciate your answer, Emily.
Leanne.
I appreciate your answer.
At some point, things should just be private, whether you're pro-choice or pro-life. I'm proud of you for making the decision that you thought was right. That's probably best for the child, that you weren't, it didn't seem like you were ready to have a child, but you were ready to have sex, and then you were ready to have an abortion. To me, it seems that you're trivializing something that's really traumatic for a lot of people, thinking you're helping them. You are helping them. You work in an abortion clinic, so you're already helping people. I don't think going viral and putting a video out there is doing anything, because I feel like it's self-serving. But I want to know, what about women that get raped? What about women that get raped and have to have an abortion, and they're watching you go, ooh, cool, yay.
I'm going to stop you. I'm going to stop you because I don't think we should get focused on the...
There's a lot in there.
I don't think we should focus... Hang on, Emily. Yeah, there's a lot of... I don't really want to get into an abortion conversation. I want to get into whether or not the video is the right thing for her to do. Judy, my question is anything private anymore? And does this trivialize this very important issue?
Right. And Emily, I have a question for you to follow up on what Dr. Drew just said, which is, is this trivializing it? And to that point, there was something that you said in your Cosmopolitan interview, that this process was like giving birth to you, that it felt like giving birth, that you were humming through it. And I'm just wondering if that's trivializing women who are giving birth. And can you really compare an abortion to a birth-like process? And I was just wondering what you were thinking when you said that to Cosmopolitan.
Well, there's a lot of questions circulating right now. I would say that I've studied birth, so I'm a birth doula. I support women during their birthing birthing experience.
Right.
And so the thing about birth is that it is personal, it is sacred, it is yours, and that you need to be supported. It should be something that you craft with having exactly whoever you want in the room with you. And so that's what I did. That's what I meant by this was as birth-like as possible. I was supported 360 degrees by women who held my hand, who said you are strong and you are beautiful and you are making the best decision for your life, and we trust you because you trust yourself.
Okay.
I mean, it
Wendy,
was just full of love and support. So because of that, I did feel like it was I still have a relationship with my body and with my pregnancy. And that's the thing, is that you can't tell me that I'm trivializing it, because you're not me.
Because you're not me. You're not me. I can only speak on my own personal experience.
I'd like to know just what sterilization is. So would I. Just how do they do it? Well, I'll tell you.
In September 1924, at the Virginia Colony for the Epileptic and Feeble-Minded, the colony's board of directors met to discuss the case of patient 1692, a 17-year-old named Carrie Buck. She'd been admitted to the colony several months before, at the request of her foster parents, who claimed that they could no longer control or care for her.
Carrie Buck had been raised by a foster family, not a nice family. She is rented out to other people in the community to do house cleaning, and she's pulled out of school after 5th grade, even though she's doing very well and is a perfectly good student. Then a nephew of her foster mother rapes her, and she gets pregnant, and they want to get rid of her.
By the time her daughter was born, the state had labeled Buck morally delinquent for having given birth out of wedlock, diagnosed her a middle-grade moron, and confined her to the colony.
She lands at the colony for epileptics and feeble-minded right when Virginia has passed a eugenic sterilization law. So the superintendent of the colony basically needs an inmate that he can say, I'm going to sterilize you, have that person challenge the law, and then hopefully prevail against her.
From the board's perspective, the menace posed by Buck's own feeble-mindedness was doubled by her lineage. Her mother, who was alleged to have engaged in prostitution, was likewise an inmate at the colony. By the laws of heredity, the board concluded, Carrie Buck is the probable potential parent of socially inadequate offspring. It was recommended she be sterilized, for both her own welfare and the good of society. Buck was assigned an attorney, friendly to the eugenic cause, who would appeal her sterilization, ideally all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States. Across the country, eugenicists would be watching to see if the Virginia test case could create a national consensus on sterilization. As the eugenicists hoped, first the county judge, then the state Supreme Court upheld Virginia's sterilization law. The next and final ruling would come from the Supreme Court of the United States.
What is the bearing of the laws of heredity upon human affairs?
Eugenics provides the answer.
To some people, truth is the unconcealment of something, a revelation. To others, however, truth is verificational correspondence. In other words, they don't perceive something as true unless they see it duplicated. Think confirmation bias. They have to see it someplace else, or else it's invisible to them. This makes them susceptible, of course, to echo chambers. This is the Achilles heel of the so-called non-playable character, who assumes that all truth is something that he's seen repeated somewhere. The echo chamber can be rigged to lie. According to Socrates, truth wasn't truth because an authority figure repeated it. Truth was more like revelation. He said, we learn nothing. We remember everything. As if your mind was tapping into the Akashic records in the cosmos. Most great scientists and artists appear to do this when they come up with an original idea or invention. Their thoughts are unique. The non-playable character type of hive mind person can't grasp unique thought. Truth to them is something that exists through duplication. I've heard it 3 different places, therefore it's true. So NPCs can't see revelation for the same reason that they can't recognize genius in art. Genius is unique. It is by definition not corroborated. Nothing truly original is. So because it's not duplicated or even duplicatable, it's all but invisible to those of shallow intellect who prize quantity over quality. It's why they revere math. Math is based on quantities. The scientific method is also based on replication. In other words, on unoriginality. Aristotle's definition of a genius is not a mathematician, but a poet. The mathematician merely memorizes. He parrots. He operates mechanically. The poet has to come up with an original way to say something, which is vastly harder. The act of creation from a blank sheet of paper is much more difficult than merely running a Xerox machine for something that already exists. It would be impossible to explain genius to people who didn't understand that truth is revelation. It's not verificational correspondence. To such people, the originality of art is invisible, as is the paranormal, as is religion. These are people cut off from revelation, from truth. It reminds me of how in the Bible the word apocalypse comes from the Greek word meaning revelation, unconcealing. This is what Heidegger described as truth. But to the non-playable character, truth is not revelation, but verificational correspondence. In psychology, they call this concept social proof, and it's how gullible rubes are manipulated. Social proof is when someone will discount the evidence of their own senses if everyone else says something different.
Do you feel alone right now?
I mean, I'd like to believe I'm not, but I've just never seen any proof, so I just don't debate it anymore, you know? It's like I could spend my whole life debating it over and over again, weighing the pros and cons, and in the end I still wouldn't have any proof, so I just don't debate it anymore. It's absurd.
The search for God is absurd?
It is if everyone dies alone.
Does that scare you?
I don't want to be alone.
This is Wasteland Chronicles signing off.